Hello, welcome to lesson 25, representing linear equations. So let's take a look at this for a second. We're planning a special occasion. Write the equation for each relationship in the space provided. Show any calculations you made. Indicate if the relationship is a partial or direct variation and describe why these variables are discrete. Let's take a look at question 1. A banquet hall charges $100 for the hall and $20 per person for dinner. Well, that tells us that the cost would be, let's take a look at the initial value. So if nobody shows up to this banquet hall, they still need to pay $100. That tells me that that will be the y-intercept, or in other words, the initial value, plus 100. Now, what's going to change depending on, I guess, whatever the variable is in this case? And the variable is per person. We know it's going to be $20 per person. So I'm going to put $20, I'm going to put P for person. There you have it. And you have the equation. Okay. Now, is this a direct or a partial? Partial, correct. Because the initial value is not at 0. Yeah, so you do the same for the rest of these. Well, for question 2, you do the exact same. Now, 3 and 4, they are graphs, and this graph is based on the cost of holding a wedding at the hotel. And based on this graph, they want you to figure out what the formula is. Well, it's very similar to what we did up here. Okay, so if we take a look at what the initial value is, the initial value here, if you look closely, let me zoom in. Okay, so you notice here that that's, why is it blurry? There we go. So you know that this value here is 500. Okay, and it's separated by 1, 2, 3, 4. Which means each tick would be 500 divided by 4, 125. So this tells me that each of these ticks is $125. Okay, and you notice it starts at 125. So our cost, our initial value is going to be 125. Now, this is based on the number of guests, so I'm going to use G for guests, and let's find out how much it costs per guest. Well, let's draw right here. Let's draw this triangle. I'm going to zoom in on that. I zoomed in a little too far. Sorry about that. Give me a second. Okay, that looks like it's the best I can get for now. But anyways, let's take a look at this rate of change. Okay, so again, it's rise over run, right? So when I talk about rise, I'm talking about the y-axis. So here, for the rise over run, I'm going to have, let's use orange for run. Okay, so the rise would be this section here. So that's 500 minus 125 over, what's the run? So that point is about, if that's 20, then that must be 15, 5, 10, 15, 20. So that'd be 15 minus 0. Now plugging that in your calculator, you get 500 minus 125, which will give you 375. Divided by 15. 15, well, because 15 minus 0 is indeed 15, and that will give us our rate of change. 375 divided by 15, 25. 25. Now what does that 25 tell us? Correct. It costs $25 per guest. Okay, and there you have it. Now, scrolling out. Oh, and you do the same thing here. So if you notice, oh, sorry, scrolling back to the one we just did, we notice it starts at 125 and not 0. Therefore, is it partial or direct? Correct, it is partial. Now for this question here, we notice that the number of athletes, 0, and the cost of attending a hockey tournament would be 0 if there are no athletes. Well, it's starting at 0, therefore this would be direct variation. Okay. Now, if it's direct, we know that the cost then there would be no initial value. Okay, plus 0. But is there any point in writing plus 0? No. Now we need to find what the slope is, okay, or what the rate of change is. Now, like we mentioned before in the graph, the rate of change, okay, so I'm going to write this on the side here, is always rise over run. Okay. Now the rise, if we look back in the graph, the rise was the change in the y, right? So in this case, the rise, if we look at, let's take a look at these two. This would be easier. So 255 minus 0 over the run, which would be the change in the x. 1 minus 0, well, so the camera is acting up. Okay, and this will give you 255. Now, I made a mistake here actually. Before we can verify that this is indeed a linear equation, let's take a look at the first differences. So 25 minus 0 is 255. What's 450 minus 255? Well, let's type it in. 450 minus 255 equals, that's 195. What's 675 minus 675? In fact, I don't even need to test this next one. That equals 225. Now what does this tell me? That it is actually not even a linear equation. So it's not even direct. It's not a linear equation. So if it's not a linear equation, if we try to draw the graph, will it be a line? No, it will not. Okay, so for the table of values, always check with the first differences first, and I made that mistake. Alright, so for the second and the third, or second page, it's your turn. And when I say your turn, I mean in the first page, the graph, equation, or the table of values is given. Here, I'm going to wrap it all together. I give you the fact that a banquet hall charges at $100 for the hall and $20 per person for dinner. I want you to come up with an equation, fill out a table of values, so number of guests, you can maybe start at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, then graph it. Okay, same thing for the last one. Alrighty, I'll see you in lesson 26.